everybody. My name is Gianna, and I am the president of the Cambridge chapter of Women Accelerators. Again, I promise I'm smiling behind my mask. I'm logging in from work right now. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to tell you guys a little bit more about Women Accelerators and our goals. So Women Accelerators is a nonprofit organization located in the Boston, Cambridge area. We also have a Lowell chapter. And our mission is to give women the tools they need to succeed in the workplace. We do this through events and seminars like we're having today. We also have virtual happy hours that run once a month. Those will pick back up come September. Take a look out for those. We also have a mentoring program. Applications for that start in the fall. And that runs from January through June. And right now we're adapting it to be virtual. So that's up and coming. We also have a coaching program, which the president of the Lowell chapter spearheads, and she runs a group that gets together and chats every Thursday. So that information can also be found on our website. And then we're also, and I think this really ties in well with the topic of today, we have an Women Accelerators Ambassador Program. So this will really help you find your voice on social media, whether that's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we kind of give you the tools you need to kickstart that, as well as, kind of provide a backdrop of kind of Women Accelerators. So that we'll give you examples of posts. We give you examples of posts that pertain to Women Accelerators. And I think it's a good kickstart to that sort of stuff. So that information can also be found on our website. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter, but not listed here. We also have an Instagram if you're interested in following us there. But that's just a little bit more about our organization. We're also looking for volunteers, specifically for our communications team and our events team. So if you're interested in that as well, feel free to email us at info@womenaccelerators.org. And with that, I'm just going to do a quick introduction of Dr. Allana. So this is seminar 2 as part of our 3-part series. So our next one is September 3rd, I believe. And Dr. Allana is the founder of Turning on the Lights Global Institute, where she creates digital courses to help people with their personal and professional goals. She has multiple degrees, a doctorate. She's fantastic. She's taught at many different universities. So you guys really are in for a very interactive, fun, and upbeat seminar today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Allana.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can change here for 1 second. Give me one moment to change my view. So thank you, everybody, for being a part of this wonderful time that we're having together. And I just want you to know that as we engage, feel free to put your questions or comments right into the chat box as I'm chatting. And I really just want you to enjoy this time. And again, we've made some adjustments to this presentation so that it really meets the need of this community. And I want to say, I just love the mission and what you guys are doing, and I'm happy to be a part of everything. So thank you for hosting and inviting me to be here today. I really, truly appreciate it. All right. So let's jump in. So if you don't know me, my name is Dr. Allana Da Graca, and as explained earlier, I'm the president of Turning on the Lights Global Institute. And I always talk about how, my backstory or my exposition is that of an educator. So when I kind of got into entrepreneurship, I really had a really fun time exploring all of the ways to really catapult my brand at the time. So this is going to be useful for you, whether or not you're a professional and you're just trying to kind of leverage you do have a brand, even if you don't feel like you do, but even if you're trying to leverage the awareness of who you are in the professional space, or if you're trying to really maybe start off a consulting business or kickstart a digital platform, then this mini training is really for you. If you've never met me before, I just want to give you a little bit of information about who I am. So, I love really showing individuals how to communicate. That can be traditionally, or that can also be through digital platforms or through what we call digital storytelling. Currently, I do still teach part-time graduate learners at Northeastern University, but I've taught at a lot of universities around this topic. How do you really tell that story? How do you really convey what you want to convey when people find you online? And when we think about the history or the trajectory of technology from the standpoint of a user or a consumer, back in the late 90s, even early 2000s, all you had to have was a static website, right? And that basically was it. You could drive traffic or even to employers and let them know, here's my portfolio, but that was pretty much all you had to do. Today, as you and I know, and even with the pandemic, that is like half the story. Nowadays, everything has to be engaging. So for the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure of being featured in places like the Epoch Times, different podcasts, have a couple of podcast series on Podomatic, Spotify, iTunes, interviewed, spoken as a TEDx speaker, just have a love for really engaging communities of learners. So whether that's in institutions, nonprofits, corporations, or even with solopreneurs, that's what I love to do. So I'm happy to be here, as I said before. So let's jump in again. So social media defined any forms of electronic communication, such as websites for social networking and microblogging, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. I mean, I have to stress the role of anything that we're doing today is really to form or either leverage some kind of community around who we are. And a lot of times when I start talking to newpreneurs or even professionals, I say, even if you don't realize it, you really are a brand. And even if you don't realize it, for every click that someone makes, whether it's on your social platform or not, it's leading and generating all kinds of activities. So if you're someone who's really trying to elevate where you are right now, I really want you to see that your Facebook, your Instagram, and everything else, you really are telling a digital story. All right. So today we're going to touch base on some of the things we highlighted in our first meeting, learning how to understand the fundamentals of digital marketing, learning how to position your brand online. So as a professional and even in the industry, maybe you want to consult and learn specifically how to use Instagram to build presence around your brand. And then lastly, you're going to be able to engage with me, yours truly. So why social media in general? Well, we can see that if we have strong consumer engagement, that leads to strong adaptation. And that's across the board. So even when you're looking for new work, or even if you're looking to just do a new project, you want to ask yourself, across all the platforms I'm a part of, how am I really getting people to engage with me? We now have a space where social media allows us to have interdependence, interconnectedness, engagement, and even management. And when we first met, I asked many of you in our poll to tell me how many of you had up to 2 platforms or more that you were using. And most of you, at least 60% of you said, oh, I have a LinkedIn and I have an Instagram. And some of you said I have 3, and some of you have more than that. So we know that all of us, especially now, we are definitely relying on our mobile use. Again, we can look at mobile use adaptation by generation and see that, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, etc., we are continuously using all platforms to make important decisions, not just to make purchases on our own in our own time, but we're using it now more than ever to create and to connect. So I really thought I looked over our notes, and thank you guys from Women Accelerators for sending me some of the feedback, because I really know that people are like, why would I ever use Instagram? Or why would I use any platform if I'm a scientist? or if I'm in this other industry that is not necessarily known for using social media. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And so let's talk about why Instagram. Okay, so on Instagram, we've got 500 million daily users. And, 38% of Instagram is used by women, 26% by men. You can also see that a lot of STEM initiatives are being utilized on Instagram. A lot of different programs are being initiated and shared just by selfies or by campaigns that are being utilized by tools like Instagram and so forth. So when I was starting my business back in 2014, first I was hesitant because I thought, oh, I teach this stuff, but I don't want it to be a waste of my own time. So I really want to make sure that I'm as authentic as possible when I'm engaging with leads or new constituents. If you can mute yourself, that would be great. Let me mute her. Okay, perfect. So I realized I had to start getting out of my own way. And one of the questions many of you asked in the last training was, well, what am I supposed to say? And what am I supposed to do like on these platforms? Or is it ambiguous? And I will say it's really all about telling a particular story. So once I realized, okay, I need to tell the story, I had to figure out how would I really tell this story and why would I use Instagram of all things? So I decided to use Instagram to really launch a new hashtag. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I decided to tell the story that basically suggests, hey, ladies, or hey, woman, if you've ever had a dream to transition from where you are right now and to maybe become a consultant or a coach or a speaker, you can do it at any age. And I decided, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to do this organically because we hear about people, buying followers and all these things, but I'm going to do it organically. I'm going to do it honestly, and I'm just going to take my time. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but amazing things happened. So once that happened, deciding to tell my story, I really had to figure out, well, what is the story? How can I do it? And how can I really build community? Again, social media for business or personal development in terms of forming communities is all about building tribe. So I had to think about how I could form an authentic community through this hashtag that I would eventually use right there on Instagram. So I'm going to give you some ideas if you're thinking about ever getting started on Instagram. I like to call it IG onboarding. The first thing I would suggest is that you come up with a unique acronym that stands for you, a message that you really feel strong about, maybe a brand, maybe something that you're connected to. I also want you to think about the point of view. What I mean by that is I need you to think for a moment about like when you went to the movies. And I forgot, as I'm chatting, feel free to, I don't see my chat box, so give me 1 second. Feel free as I'm chatting to put any comments or questions you have. So when you think about Instagram, I want you to think about, how it is when you go to a movie. Now, when we watch movies, right, we know that there's a certain point of view that the writer wants us to have. Either they're telling a first person narrative or they're giving you a narrative where you know more than the actual lead character, or there are a bunch of little steps that's going to lead us through the story that leads us down this road that eventually showcases a thematic moment that really drives home a strong point. So anytime you think about telling a story, specifically on Instagram, you want to start asking yourself, well, what kind of point of view do I really want to give my user to experience? Am I bringing them into like a personal journey? Am I leading them up to a special event? Am I kind of giving them touch points around some core themes I'm committed to with an eventual goal that they'll sign up for something? Or even if it's job related, is my whole goal of posting to really showcase my research, my knowledge, what I'm doing, and with the idea of maybe having a lot of freelance contract opportunities or perhaps landing a job. So it really depends. You really have to think about point of view. Then you have to think about color of, the colors of your photos and images. And this is important because color tells us everything. Like if I were to ask you right now in the chat box, and please feel free to engage because I like it when you guys engage. But if I were to ask you right now to tell me, what kind of colors would you see in a science fiction movie when it's close to the pinnacle of something being revealed? I'm going to pause. What kind of color and hues do you think you would see if you were at a movie and it was at the climactic point of a sci-fi film, or maybe even a horror film? You can put the colors right there in the chat box. I love it. Bright electric blues and purples, good. Plasma. Anything else? Keep it going. Neon blue. Let's keep going. Yes, combination of black, silver, and green. Okay. Neon green. Good. And anything else you would see? Like, okay, so let's take it to, now if we were to think about Disney, okay? If we were to think about Disney, Discovery, young children, a much different demographic, what the weekend, what other colors would we see? Yes, absolutely. Pastel, think of the color wheel and think of the contrast, right? So we don't often think about it, but there's a reason why the movie cinemas are designated the way that they are. There's a reason why when you get to a climactic point in a movie, you start seeing those hues, the dark hues, and you start hearing certain sounds. So you have to start thinking about that. And you say, oh, that for Instagram? Well, yes, because eventually the long game is you're building a story. And as you build a story, then, you kind of telling this long chain story, and people love story. People love to be connected to a cause. People love to understand narratives and historical references. So, there are so many examples of companies today that are using Instagram, just deciding, you know what, let's tell our story. Let's tell the story of our brand. You can even look at Starbucks and see how Starbucks is telling a story. So all of the brands that we see today that we often use, just look them up and see how they are actually telling a story. And then I like to say, you can think about touch points. Touch points are opportunities for people to really have some kind of sensory feeling with regards to a post that you have, right? A scene with you on the water. Maybe if you, for example, if I were a health and wellness coach, then perhaps, it could be that it's like a scene of me on the water, just experiencing peace. Right. And so it allows that person viewing it to be like, wow, that looks like a really beautiful photo. She seems so peaceful. And then there's a caption, right? And so you guys know how Instagram works, but from the standpoint of you being the creator, you want to start asking yourself, what kind of touch points can I create? And then, to think about the purpose is to engage. So one of the things that Instagram has done, even Facebook, so in order to have more rich experiences, Facebook decided to put more algorithms in the Facebook groups. And so that's why I always suggest, if you really want to have better reach and more engagement, just create a small Facebook group. Doesn't matter if you have 20 people, 50 people, 100, whatever, just create a space where people can authentically engage. And when you create an acronym or a hashtag, did you know that you could register your own hashtag? So when I came up with the hashtag for my brand, it is Upgrade My Life, hashtag UPML. And it really just stands for women deciding to take a stand in their lives, whether they're business owners or whether they are, just trying to grow or in the middle of transition. So a lot of the ladies love that hashtag, and we created t-shirts, and we created, all of our conferences are around that particular hashtag. Why do we create a hashtag? Well, over time, a hashtag is basically a word or an acronym that really brings community around a core value. So I know, for example, if I post anywhere on Instagram and I ask my tribe to put hashtag UPML, that they're going to understand what that means, because they've come to the workshops, they've come to the trainings, etc. Now, if you're maybe an individual brand and you're just trying to grow as a consultant, you can create your own hashtag so that you are identifiable, so that you have what I call a unique digital footprint. You're starting to establish a unique footprint. So when you think about this wheel, this is the behind the scene activity that needs to happen when you think about onboarding what you're doing on a platform such as Instagram. And so when I started out, I realized, okay, I have a map, and we're not going to have time to talk about a calendar, a social media calendar today, because we're going to do it in our third training. But essentially, you want to have a common theme, Then you want to select 2 variations per week of the kinds of posts you want to have. For example, you could say, well, my theme for the month of August is health and wellness. And for every week, I'm going to post 2 different types of health and wellness images. Like maybe the first one is with you trying to be fit, but the second one is a quote about fitness. So, people post daily, some people post twice a day. I'll leave it up to you as to the time that you set for this, but you really want to think about starting to put a pattern to what you're doing. And then I always say, have a triad approach to everything. Whether you create a digital course and you have an Instagram to let people know about that course, there should always be 3 types of activities that people can do to either, number 1, learn more about you as the person, learn about your brand, and to take action. So you're always trying to work out a triad approach. And hopefully you have a blog or a website. Like I said before, it used to be that all you had to have was a static website, but today, even when you're looking for a job, a static website is not enough. You really want to have some kind of engagement. So if you're an expert in your field, in what you do, this is a great time, because many times people are so stuck in their studies or research that they actually don't take the time to form community around the things that they know. And so a little later on, I'll share with you a story of a scientist who is deciding to use Instagram to really build what she's doing. But why would you use Instagram? Again, you use it to build your social credibility. And there are a lot of beautiful things happening on these platforms. So for example, here's just an example of a hashtag UPML post I've had. All of the posts, what I always have quotes, personal images of myself, and also a couple of photos of people in what we call the tribe. And in my industry, it's essential that my community or my target gets to know who I am as the brand. But that might not be your case. You might really have a cause that you're about, where you don't necessarily have to have images of yourself. Remember, you can use all types of new media to really leverage what you're doing. You can have images with voiceovers. You can even use, did you know you could even use Creative Commons videos right in YouTube to really create long form posts? There are a lot of things that you can do after you decide, okay, what's my theme? How do I want to use Instagram? Or how do I want to tell my story? But this is just an example. So hashtag UPML, write a sentence below to encourage someone to get serious about reaching new goals. Tag 2 people who need this encouragement. So clearly, I'm again, focusing on the core message, which is all about goal acquisition, and I'm getting my tribe to then, find ways to show support and also build community. In the same way, you can do the same exact thing. So let me just talk about what this meant for me. When I created this acronym back in 2017, I had no idea what would happen. So when I started out on Instagram, I picked up my phone, as I showed you guys before, and I just went live. And I said, hello, my name is Dr. Allana Todman-Da Graca. I'm the president of Turning on the Lights Global Institute. And it felt really weird because no one was watching. And I want to tell you, actually, I want to ask you this so you can put it in the chat box. How do you feel about using Instagram? Would you ever use it, or would you prefer LinkedIn? And what are some things that would kind of, get you a little anxious about using those platforms? But anyhow, when I was holding the phone, I thought no one was paying attention. And after about the second week, I put my phone down and I felt like, okay, this is a waste of time. But then a woman in London said, where are you? It's 2 a.m. I'm waiting for you to go live. And that's when I recognized that consistency was super important. Due to that consistency, this woman on my left, Susie Carter, who helps brands create multi-million-dollar businesses, she said, Allana, I see what you're doing. I would love to join your tribe and community. And it was a beautiful thing because she joined the tribe and other ladies joined the tribe, and we kickstarted a beautiful conference. And so because of this whole idea of just creating an acronym, a conference was created, movements were created, and we've been able to help over 10,000 participants across all of our programs to reach new goals, start new businesses, write new books, create digital products, you name it. And so who would have thought that one simple hashtag would bring women from all over the country to a hotel room here in Boston? And now we have a virtual conference, and we will have our new virtual conference coming up in December. So it's exciting to see what a simple hashtag can do. So let me just talk about this for a second. So when you decide to start using Instagram or even LinkedIn, it's not that you're only just using your acronym. You want to use it and in conjunction with the other acronyms that are really useful for your industry. So for example, Upgrade My Life, okay, my tribe knows that, but to get other individuals, right, we need to use the proper hashtags. So I could use hashtag boss babe, I could use hashtag entrepreneurs, hashtag leadership, etc. So as you're thinking about this, you really want to ask yourself, what makes sense for me? Raphael says, I think data mining, privacy, and security are the major concerns. I like Instagram for its simple interface and the hashtags. Yeah, so again, I get it. The data concerns are, of course, very important. But again, people still are making decisions. And also, even if you are, I've been talking to a couple of people who work in the pharmaceutical industry. And so one of the things that we've highlighted is that, of course, obviously in that industry, there are, you have HIPAA concerns and all of that, but you can still create an Instagram feed or page or Facebook community that's around all of the outlier things related to that industry. So it doesn't have to tie directly into things that people are working on, but it can always be a low level, tier where people can kind of understand some general concepts. And so this is something that we want to think about. So one of the things, we're not going to go into this simulation completely today, but one of the things is that we want to think about, who are we trying to target? And when we meet, thank you, Gianna, when we meet at the next session, we're going to talk about this woman who has a client, and she's trying to understand how to transition her client into being an actual consumer of her product or her coaching. So we'll talk about that. But one of the things that this woman will have to do, or anyone who wants to be in consulting will have to do, is they will have to understand how to have a click message, right? Where they have a clear message, they're able to locate the need, they're able to have ideation of strategy, connect with constituents, and have a key of what I call return on investments. So when you're thinking about creating a great message, you really want to think about having clarity. So when you are thinking about alignment, you're asking yourself, how can I build my brand equity? So you want to have consistent traction with the consumer. You want to know what to expect, right? And you want to create a relationship between the consumer and the brand. And then look at every single thing you post and do even your research as assets. So one of the first things I ask my clients is take an inventory of all the assets you automatically have. And then lastly, again, think about your core message, the ideals that you want to communicate, how to appeal to community, and the outcomes. So let's look at this, Instagram for science professionals. So a lot of times people say, well, why would I even want to use Instagram? I'm a scientist, or I work in a field that's not necessarily popular for social media. Well, this individual, Dr. Nell, who works at the University of Rhode Island, she really saw that Instagram was useful because it allows science to become accessible to the public. It gets citizens involved. It helps people to understand that science is exciting. She found it to be useful because she realized that she could be a part of a larger conversation. She's also able to add value by sharing stories and highlighting things within her industry or maybe research. She's found ways to, really bring attention to her scholarship. So here we can see that, across industries, social media can be useful. And then she makes this comment. Scientists' Instagram posts, especially ones in which they share photos of themselves in science settings, yes, even selfies, might indeed be able to positively change gender science stereotypes or stereotypes that associate STEM activities and abilities with being male and vice versa. This is based both on preliminary data that the scientist who selfie researched them is collecting and analyzing. In other words, positive changes in public perceptions and gender stereotypes might be an added benefit of many and diverse scientists sharing their experiences and photos online. So we can see that there is a large movement of women organizations right there on Instagram, and a lot of nonprofits, a lot of communities are in there forming tribes and groups and communities just like this one. So I want to just thank you all for being a part of this training today. And I purposely left time open today to see if you had any questions with regards to how you could actually, upgrade in your personal or even in your professional life using tools of social media. And again, if you want to follow me, you can go to Dr. D Inspire with a Y right there on Instagram, as well as you can go to Facebook and join my special community, hashtag IWBCC. And my website, you can take a screenshot, is right below. And I'm always able to take and book appointments to connect with you so that we can discover how you can actually upgrade and level up the digital footprint you currently have. Now, a lot of times people often don't see the need to really upgrade their online portfolio, especially if they're professionals. But I would say that given the market that we are in right now, one of the number one things that you can do to distinguish yourself from someone else is to make sure that all your social media platforms are up to date, that they really highlight maybe some of the hot features of your background. And if you're a consultant or entrepreneur, the first thing you can do is just make sure that you have strong brand alignment and get started right there with Instagram. So again, I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this Women Accelerators training. And now I would like to open the floor up for any questions. Again, if you want to reach out to Women Accelerators, here is their information. And you have my information below. And then lastly, if you want to catch the first video from the first series, be certain to click the link above and watch that YouTube video. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. Are there any questions or thoughts?
Allana, I had a very naive question. I put it in the chat as well.
Oh.
When do you use Facebook stories versus posts?
Oh, great one. So we're talking about when do you use Facebook stories versus the posts? And you're talking about just on Facebook or is Instagram as well?
I'm sorry, I meant Instagram actually.
Okay, so that's a great thing. So you can use, I suggest that you use Instagram. Well, let me ask you another question. Would you be using it for just personal development or for business or for consulting, or how would you be using it?
Well, right now I'm just using Instagram for personal, but let's say I was to use it for like business or, just to.
Got it. Yeah, so if you were going to use it for business, then you want to start using it daily. And I would just do one. I typically, in my Instagram, for example, I typically post at least 3 to 4 times a day. And it just depends. Like if I know, like, for example, if I were to have like a campaign that led to a special event, I definitely would start using the Instagram stories a lot more frequently. So for example, every time we have a new conference coming up, I definitely, leading up to it, at least 6 weeks before it, I'm definitely posting at least 4 to 5 stories. And now these stories can either be sometimes, I like to call it a 2x2 or even a 3x3, which is like one of the posts has me just talking about something relative to the conference. Then the next post is like I feel like you guys can't see me, so I'm going to stop sharing so you can actually see me talking. And I also see other people that needed to come in that I didn't see before. So you guys give me a second. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so one of the things I actually would do is if it were coming close to an actual special event, then I would actually be posting at least 3 to 4 times a day in the stories, because stories were introduced about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And what they do really, the reason why you want to use them, and I'm going to give you some secret tips that people don't necessarily use. So why you use stories is that posts are great, but now posts in the algorithms don't necessarily raise your viewership as much as the stories do. But the stories are only useful if you're either creating engagement, like you can take polls within the stories, you can even get comments and feedback from people in stories. So I would just encourage you to use stories if you know that you have a special event coming up. But if you're just building traction, then you can just use stories to let people know, a little bit more about your brand or what it is that you're about. In the beginning, you kind of just want to take it easy and just do one post or two posts in the stories. But in posting, you definitely want to post daily, and you definitely want to have somewhere between 15 to 20 hashtags that are relative to your industry. Anything else? Hopefully that answered your question, Kathy.
Hey, Alana.
Hi.
I was wondering if you can comment on other platforms. I remember during the first part, you talked about LinkedIn, and today you talked about Instagram more. But how about Twitter and a little bit more about Facebook? You touched upon Facebook, but I guess we haven't really heard your insights about Twitter. And I'd say that you mentioned about science professionals, and it seems like there's a big network of academic Twitter. And I was wondering if you have any insights on that, and also tips or tricks for people.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So I usually don't talk about Twitter because it's not my preferred choice of platform, but I will talk about Facebook. I'll backtrack. So Twitter is really great if you just want to, if you don't mind, it's not my preferred choice. You can use it, and you can use tools like Hootsuite to basically, send out a plethora of your campaign or to 3 different platforms using Hootsuite, including Twitter. And of course, Twitter was the place where the hashtags originated. So I'm going to stick to Facebook and LinkedIn, because I think that there's a lot of conversation around LinkedIn, and people oftentimes kind of don't think about using LinkedIn and what's there. So I know that you may not know, but LinkedIn has a great area where you can blog, and LinkedIn also has a blog calendar for their actual official LinkedIn community. So you would have to basically, if you just put into the Google search, there's a LinkedIn blog series that they have every single year where they tell you what they want writers to talk about. And so sometimes the hashtag is like, what would I have done if I were, what would I have, I think the last one I did was, what would I have done? What would my younger self tell my future self? Like, they have these really cool themes that you can just participate in. And when you do that, LinkedIn brings those blogs up in the algorithm so more people get to view it. The other piece is you can also join LinkedIn communities. So these are communities of scientists, communities of leaders. And again, across all platforms, you really just want to have some kind of plan, right? It should all lead to something. It shouldn't just be random posts. And a lot of people just think, okay, I'm going to start being active and I'm just going to start posting. But you really want to take time really asking yourself, well, if I'm on there right now, just as the expert or as a specialist, what do I really want people to take away as they get to learn more about my research or what I'm doing? But if you really want them to kind of really understand your passion around something, I would choose one particular platform, whether it was Instagram or Facebook, and I would really have good long form posts with strong images, or even video if you feel comfortable with that. The other thing is, a big thing is that more people are watching more video than ever. And so even Twitter, right? You can even now use Twitter. You can use Periscope, because Periscope is part of Twitter. And you can actually have these short videos that are at least like 1 minute to 3 minutes, where you're talking about, something of interest, or maybe you're behind the scenes at a virtual event, since everybody's virtual right now. So I just want to encourage you that no matter what, you just really want to have a clear understanding of what you want the outcomes to be, or you're just on there randomly, making posts. So I would like to ask, how many of you would be using, any of these platforms to build your professional life? Can you just raise your hand or put your comments down if you would? No, Allie says, no, not really. How many of you would use it for being more of a consultant? Sarah says LinkedIn and Twitter for business and she writes on Medium. Yeah, Medium is a great tool as well. Yes, blogging is also great. Twitter is huge for science. Awesome. I have to run to another meeting. Thank you, Emma, for coming. So again, across all industries, you just really want to take time and ask yourself, what do I want the outcome to be? Thank you, Harleen. Is there any, Diggs, sorry. Is there anything else you want me to answer?
That's it, yeah. And I think people are commenting also about Twitter, science Twitter being huge. And so, yeah, I guess that was the other reason why I brought it up. But it's nice to see the perspective from Instagram, because definitely there's the more personal aspect to it. So I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being a part of this this wonderful webinar. And again, if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me at Dr. D Inspire with a Y. And you can also follow me #IWBCC right there on Facebook. I appreciate you all. I forgot to mention this, but on Saturday, I'll be partnering with the Boston Public Library to give a talk about how to create a digital pitch. So if you're someone who's looking to gain investment, or you're trying to learn how to really appeal to a particular audience, or you're trying to build a new project, this is going to be more so around how you can use different forms of new media as you create awareness around a project or an idea that you have. Thank you so much, everyone. That concludes our time together. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.